Hi crafty peeps, it's Kat. Welcome to another episode of the Botanic Art series. If you missed the last video, I'll have it linked at the end and in the description box for you. If you love bold floral cards but don't want to spend hours making them, well, you're in the right place. Today I have 3 cards for you, all featuring stunning dahlia flowers, but best part, they came together super fast and easy. Okay, let's get into it. Today we're playing with a new to me set from Altenew called Grand Dahlia. It's their keyhole system and the dice come in a nice package like this, and it has a pretty extensive layering guide on the inside to help you assemble the flowers. But honestly, I didn't even bother looking at the guide because the flowers were beyond easy to assemble without it. And on the back here you have inks and layout suggestions. Very well thought out set. I'm gonna start with my background first because I need to give it time to dry before I use it. So I'm spritzing an A2 piece of black cardstock with water on both sides, and I'll use a paper towel to blot up any excess water. This will help us get a better impression in the embossing folder. I picked a pretty simple frame folder from Spellbinders, but you can use whichever one you have. Something leafy or a simple pattern would work really well for this type of card. So I ran the folder through my die cutting machine and check this out, this is so cute. Next, I'm gonna add some gold splatter to my embossed background for some visual interest. I have pre-mixed Simon Says Stamp splatter medium in gold here, and all you gotta do is shake it really well before use, and it's ready to go. You could also use metallic watercolors here instead. So I dip my brush in, and I'm first gonna tap some of the bigger blobs off to the side, and then we'll tap directly onto the panel. You could skip this step altogether and your card would still turn out gorgeous. I just like little details like this. Honestly, I think everything looks more beautiful and dramatic on black. I'm gonna set this panel aside to dry completely for now. We're moving on to the flowers. So like I mentioned before, this is a keyhole system, and that little triangle that you saw in the middle, you're supposed to pop it out, but I'll do that later. This is what helps you line up the die cuts. The dies also impress a number into the center. There was a little number 2 impressed on the one I just showed you, and this helps you with the order in which you will layer your petals. I've never used the keyhole system before, but y'all, I'm a believer now. This is such a well thought out die set. I am quite impressed, I have to say. Alright, so I'm inking my petals with my lightest purple here. This is Hydrangea ink from Pink Fresh, and I'm putting down a nice light layer over all of the petals, but concentrating mostly in the middle. The cards that I'm making today are actually for 2 of my coworkers. They have birthdays within days of each other, and one of the girls is a big fan of a black and purple color combo, and the other one's favorite color is blue. So these are the kind of color schemes that I'm working with today. I like me a very bold and dramatic floral card, so when I get to put flowers on a black background, it's the best. Any lighter color you put on black will immediately pop, so if you want to add some drama, definitely try this out. So here I'm finishing up with my first layer, and I'm gonna grab a darker shade of purple next. This is Wilted Violet Distress ink, and I'll grab a smaller brush and we'll layer this ink on top, concentrating mostly in the center. I will take this out a little bit onto the petals, but I want the ends to be very light and the middle to be very dark in comparison. So I'll take this color out to about the middle of the petals. I honestly thought about adding some black ink in the center for a super dramatic dark center, but then decided against it because I'm putting the flower on a black background, and I thought if the flower had black on it, it might not look as dramatic. I know you might be thinking, what the heck, black ink on the flowers? But y'all, trust me, you can create some stunning dramatic dark blooms using black ink. Go check out my iris card video after this one. All I'm trying to say is don't be afraid of using dark colors for your florals. They can create an incredible amount of drama. So I've repeated the process for all of my petals until I was happy with the results. And for the centers, I first check how they will layer and then added the ink accordingly to some of the areas just for a bit of shading and color variation. I have now switched to my darkest shade of purple. This is Villainous Potion Distress ink, and I will use this color to darken my centers even more. I'll periodically layer my pieces to see how the colors will show up and make any adjustments where needed. I think you're starting to see the color difference between the ends and the center of the petals. That is getting pretty significant, and this is good. This is exactly what we want. The easiest way to make your floral card stand out and pop is to add lots of contrast. So I'm creating contrast within the flower itself and also through the background color choice. Like I said before, any lighter color you put on black is guaranteed to pop. So I repeated the inking for all of my petals, making the centers that gorgeous dark purple color. And now we're gonna move on to the leaves. Most of these guys will be tucked behind the flowers, so you don't need to spend as much time coloring these. But I still wanted some variation in color, so I have a lighter and a much darker green inks here. With my lighter shade, I will first create a base layer of color, but I will keep the ends of the leaves quite light. I put more of my lighter ink towards the center to create that color gradation, and then I'll come in with my dark shade of green. And I will kind of repeat the process, focusing mostly in the center of the leaves or on one of the sides. And you don't need to be perfect with this at all. Like I said, these will be tucked behind the flowers, so don't spend too much time on these. Now, for the flower assembly, y'all, I still can't believe how easy this was. All you do is grab your petal layer number 1. Remember, there are numbers etched on the center of each one. Then you put the glue on that center portion, take your layer number 2, and just line up that triangular hole in the center. Boom, done. Then you repeat the process with the rest of the petal layers, just going in order from 1 to 6. The large flower has 6 layers and the smaller one has 5, I believe. Then when you get to the center, you first grab the piece that has the same triangular hole in the center and line that up. Then you cover it with the first solid layer to cover that little hole, and then you put the rest of your layers on top. So easy. Listen, I sound like a total fangirl over here, but no one paid me to say this. I bought the set with my own money and it actually wasn't cheap. But I seriously think it was worth it because hello, look at that giant flower and how easy it was to put together. Here I'm finishing up with the center portion. The second flower has one less layer, but it's assembled in the exact same way, so I'm gonna do this off camera to save us some time. Once the glue has dried, I'm gonna gently shape my flowers by pushing the petals in. I'll hold it in the middle and will very gently push the petals into the center with my fingers one by one. Look at this thing, how freaking gorgeous is this? Not to mention this flower's huge. I seriously can't get enough of it. Okay, time to put this all together. My card base is black, so on the inside I glued in a white panel that's just a tiny bit smaller than my A2 card. This will give me a very thin border all around and will provide a place for a personal message. You can skip this and use a white gel pen to write your message, but the extra panel makes your card base sturdier, so I don't mind doing this step. Next, I'm putting the glue on the back of my embossed panel, and I have my scoring board to help me line things up. You shove your card base into the very corner, hold it down, and then shove the panel into the same corner. Then press everything down to adhere. Because that frame panel has quite a bit of dimension, I will put something heavy on top while the glue dries, and I will work on my sentiment in the meantime. And by that, I mean I'm gonna stack a second layer behind my foiled strip just to make it a bit more sturdy, and it's a great way to use up your scraps. I made this sentiment using a press plate, which also happens to be from Altenew. I love that gold foil on black. Okay, now for the flower arrangement. Because I will be tucking things behind, I will pop up my largest flower using a thick black foam square. And for my smaller flower, I will use a thin black foam square just in the center. I put the glue on the back of the foam to give me extra wiggle room, and I will place my flower in the lower left as close to the bottom edge as possible. I like when things hang off the edge of the card, but I'm only gonna do that on the side, because if you do that on the bottom, it might prevent the card from standing up properly. I will tuck in my smaller flower behind the first one, but so that most of it is still visible, and I'll press it all down to adhere. Then I'll tuck in my leaves with the largest branchy looking thing at the top, and I will only glue the centers or a small portion of the leaves because I want the ends to kind of stick up, I guess you would say. I just don't want them to be glued flat is what I'm getting at. And I'll manipulate my piece until I get it in the position I like. If there's any glue oozing out, I'll just quickly dab it with my fingers to get rid of it. Because I'm only gluing a tiny portion of the leaves, I'm gonna get my finger right under the petals of the flowers and really press it all down to make sure it stays put. I don't want any leaves falling off the card later on. I'm gonna go around my flowers and tuck the rest of the leaves in. What I'm trying to do here is to go for kind of an L shape in the lower left corner. This is honestly one of my favorite types of arrangements, and it's also the easiest one, I believe. If you struggle with the placement of your florals, give this a try. First, put your largest floral in the lower left corner. Then put your smaller flowers on the top and one on the right-hand side. That's if you're using 3. If you're using 2 like me, I'd put the smaller flower on the right. I will have example with 3 flowers for you at the end of the video. Then fill the empty spaces with even smaller tiny flowers or with your greenery while trying to keep to that overall L shape in the lower left. I will leave another video linked for you in the description. The L shape that I'm talking about is more evident in that one, so check it out when we're done here. Also, don't be afraid to cut up your leaves to stretch them. You just saw me chop one in half, and I'm gonna stick it in 2 different places, creating an illusion like I have more of them all around my arrangement. I honestly doubt the recipient will go looking under the flowers and tell you, ha, you cut up your pieces. I'd be very surprised if they did. Here I'm tucking in that first half of my leaf, and I'll use the other one on a different corner. Once I'm done with the arrangement, I'll attach my sentiment. I have one thin foam square on the back, and I also glued a bunch of scrap pieces to help it sit level on the card. There's the middle portion of the embossed frame that's pushing up, and my sentiment will stretch kind of across it, so it took a bit of finagling to get the depth just right. I'll also use my trusty T-square to help me get it straight, just butt it up right against the edge. Okay, let's finally look at all of the completed cards. That's the one I made on camera. The gold splatter ties in really nicely with that gold foiled sentiment. Guys, I'm telling you, put your florals on black background. This will totally change your card game. I love how dramatic this one turned out. And all that extra dimension on the flower, I mean, come on, it's stunning. This is my second card for the coworker whose favorite color is blue. You can see with the white background, it's a completely different look. Here I used blue inks for the flowers, same type of blending we did on the purple flower, light tips and dark center. And I embossed the background with a wavy embossing folder and added some gold splatter just like with the first card. And the sentiment is just the reverse of my black sentiment foiled on white cardstock. By the way, if you want to see some foiling on this channel, do let me know in the comments. And this third card, if you follow me on Instagram, which by the way, you totally should, I'll leave the link in the description, you might have already seen. This one is just a straight up color punching you in the face, but I love it so much. I used 3 flowers here instead of 2, and I blended the centers with 2 shades of yellow ink and the tips with the bright pink shade, leaving the centers of the petals much lighter. This is a primary color palette, which means this will provide the most amount of visual stimulation. If you want to know more about color theory and how to pick your color combos, go check out the description box. I'll have it all linked for you. Let me know down below which card is your favorite. See you guys in the next video.